Greetings. Welcome to Dr. Neil's Spiritual Awakening to Non-Duality. This is Dr. Connie Zweig, and I'll be interviewing my husband who lives in spiritual awakening. You may have heard about this or read about it, but you may not know someone who lives it day to day. We'll be exploring how non-duality developed in Dr. Neil as I've observed it over 25 years, and as he directly experiences it every day. Each podcast will explore a different theme. We look forward to you joining us. Welcome back. We're going to pick up where we left off when Dr. Neil met his first spiritual guide or mentor.
Yes, Dr. Neat. Dr. Neat was a homeopath with tremendous psychic and spiritual awareness. He could use a pendulum and tell me what was going on in my body with different organs and tell subtle levels of reality and spoke directly to me as a soul. So some of what he said in that first session with him, I realized many years later what he was trying to get at. He also redirected me towards the process of involution. That means coming into form, coming into a body before one transcends the body. So he told me, in other words, that I was confused about the direction of my spiritual development and that I needed to get more embodied before I became more evolved.
I remember you said you were ill when you went to him.
Yes, that's correct. I was meditating 5 hours a day, at least, and was becoming sicker and sicker. And when I went to see him, he asked me if I was interested in making a lot of money because he could help me, or whether I wanted lots of sex, or whether I wanted a good relationship, or whether I wanted to have more power in my life. All of which I responded negatively because I was growing in terms of evolving, not involution, evolving from where I was, which was the wrong step.
So we all have heard this term spiritual bypass.
Correct.
It sounds like you were going through the chakras and skipping stages.
Yes, in my previous lifetime, I had moved from the first and second chakras. When I say chakras, I mean the body that one attaches to that has a field, an energy field.
So you said you were moving from first chakra,
second chakras to the seventh. I'd missed out on all the 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
And so basically in a different language, what Dr. Neat was telling you is you had to open the lower centers first.
Correct. And I did realize that I wanted to come back into human form when I was in Brahmaloka, bliss consciousness. And that was important. But I got confused along the way and wanted to go back into a spiritual teaching and a spiritual development prematurely.
And so how did you take his redirection? What happened?
Well, he said to me, if that's your truth, then you have 4 months to live. And that shocked me because that was obviously not why I was incarnating. I did want to be fully human, and I did want to live. So I asked him what I needed to do. He said, you need to get into your physical body, exercise, eat well, get into sex, which I had been abstaining from, be more powerful, and having a career that was more solid. And this was when I was about 21, 22. So I was a student at that point.
And what else did you discover with him?
What I discovered with him was something quite amazing and unique. he used the pendulum to answer questions, yes, no, maybe, and later on, I realized whole forms of answers to questions that existed in the cosmos. So he was a knower. He could access knowledge about many things intuitively, psychically, spiritually, and I picked up how to do that.
Can you explain it or describe it for us and how it's connected to involution, evolution?
Yeah, imagine you have a pendulum at the end of a string or a wire, and if you empty your mind, empty your body's attention, and allow yourself just to be, and then ask yourself a question or have somebody ask you a question. What is your name? For example, my name is Dr. Neil. And so the pendulum would move in a clockwise direction, indicating that, yes, that was correct. If it moved in an anti-clockwise, that would indicate that it's not correct.
We call it counterclockwise.
Or counterclockwise, that's right.
Right.
All right. And so
is it mostly yes or no questions?
Yeah, it started off with yes or no, and then got yes, no, maybe, yes, no in the middle, and then became whole forms that downloaded into my mind. So this was accessing what I would call knowledge. And knowledge is something that is more subtle than the body sense of knowledge or the mental sense of knowledge. It's much more subtle. It's more subtle than intuition.
So it's beyond the body mind, this kind of knowledge. Is it sixth chakra or seventh chakra?
Seventh chakra, beyond the body, the mind, or the soul.
Oh, it's beyond the soul.
Beyond the soul.
Okay. And how did that develop for you?
Well, I was a psychologist, and I started to use the pendulum as a mechanism to know what was going on in my client's world. So, for example, Mary came in to see me, and before she came in the door, I would do a reading. I called it a reading at that time, and that would indicate whether she was stuck at 3 years old and what was the cause of being stuck at 3 years old. She had a lot of anger and hurt because of the way she was treated. And the solutions were for her to express her anger and her frustrations, which was very difficult for her. And so before she even came to see me, I knew basically where her stuck place was and what I could do to unfold her to the next level. The next level meant to release the anger, hurt, pain, and move up.
And so you were using this, should we call it psychic or it's not psychic?
Originally, I used to call it psychic because that seemed to fit with what people knew and was a way. But as time went on, I became aware that it was not a sixth chakra psychic, in other words, psychic phenomenon. It was a seventh chakra, eighth chakra, and belonged to spiritual realm of all knowledge is available to one who is serving. And I was in service to these beings.
So let's talk about the impact of this service of being able to really access the deepest diagnosis and treatment for your clients. How did that affect you?
Well, it evolved me spiritually. In other words, I used it to develop better involution, in other words, come into form, because I was using it for career and I was using it to help the relationships that I was in.
Well, I remember you once told me about how doing therapy became a spiritual practice for you, and you saw yourself go through various stages.
Correct.
As you were doing this.
Yes. So, yes, psychotherapy is about helping people to grow through the stages. And this method of knowing what was stuck, what was blocked, what was in pain was very helpful for me to actually help people, but also to help myself. Because while it's difficult to become aware of your own blocks, one does so through serving others.
So it would seem to me that you had bypassed several chakras, but that service is very centered in the heart chakra.
Yes, service is centered in the heart chakra, and the capacity to know what is going on inside another person is centered in the sixth chakra and the third chakra. The sixth chakra being the psyche, and the third chakra being the knower, the knowledge, the map.
The knowledge is in the third chakra?
Not knowledge in the spiritual sense, knowledge in the sense of how do you diagnose a problem? How do you assess it? How do you...
Oh, the intellectual frame.
Correct.
No, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you began to see that practicing psychotherapy used all these different aspects of yourself. And how did that unfold over the decades as you were connecting to hundreds and hundreds of people?
Well, the involution was about having sex. In other words, breaking my brahmacharya, my abstinence vow, getting married, having 3 children, developing my career to the point of having success in it, assuming personal power, and coming into the bottom 4 chakras, the bottom 4 levels of awareness. So that was a very important process, because without that, I couldn't go further inwards. I would be in a pre-trance fallacy, as Wilbur says.
Yeah, you were mistaking one thing for another. You were mistaking the personal for the transpersonal, and what was happening was that you'd actually skipped all these stages.
Correct. And I came back to be more fully human and not to skip those stages. And that took almost 20 years.
So for 20 years, nobody knows who you are. You're living in this kind of ordinarily human way.
Correct.
Then you met me. So where do we want to pick up from here?
Well, I always realized on a subtle level that 49 years old was the beginning of more spiritual growth and practice.
How did you know that?
Partly the knower, the part of me that has a connection with knowing. And part of it was from Kabbalah, which said that people are not ready for going inwards until they're 49, inwards into the mystical planes, which I was interested in, and I spent quite a few years learning.
It seems to me when we met, we had a lot of psychological and emotional work to do that we were still both kind of catching up with in our own development.
Well, I can't speak for you, but certainly I was still growing, and I still continue growing today on a psychological and physical level. Those have not stopped growing. And I don't believe anybody really is enlightened in the sense that they can let go of physical, psychological, or spiritual development. Those are all growing together.
So if we were to come back to this moment now, in this, and be present to each other in this second, what are you experiencing?
I am empty, and that emptiness unloads into fullness, and fullness is about being everywhere. So I have a sense of myself as being conscious of being everywhere, and that's not just theoretical or a feeling or a thought. That means that my awareness can be looking at the galaxy, the one we're in, looking at various planes where people go to when they die. So the concept of being everywhere is very grounded and real, and including being in my body and including having a body that is everywhere. So my physical body is local, sitting in front of this microphone, and it's also on every plane.
And so when you see it on every plane, are you separate from it? When you say it's you or your body, what does that mean?
Well, in some ways, it's the divine body, but it's difficult to describe that way. But yeah, but it's a personal body that is everywhere, as well as a collective body.
It's personal, collective, and divine.
And divine.
So we've gone from your past life, your involution, part of the story of your incarnation as Neil and your individuality, to this moment in which you're identifying with
everything, identifying with being everywhere in everything. Everything is in me. For example, if I'm looking at the wall that's in front of us, I can see the wall like a normal physical perception. I can see the inside of the wall, the different beams that are going on there. And I can see what's on the other side of the wall. For us, it's the Marina del Rey harbor. I can see the harbor. I can see the city that we're living in. I can look at the planet from the inside and find myself there and find myself looking at myself on the outside. And so these are examples of who I am. I am empty because I am full of everything.
I don't understand that paradox.
Well,
empty because you're full doesn't make sense.
Because I am beyond time, space, time, how would you say it?
Space time.
Because I'm beyond space time, I am able to be nowhere and everywhere. Because everywhere is accessible from a place beyond space and time. And nowhere is accessible from a space beyond space, a place beyond space and time.
So when you say I am empty or I am everywhere, who or what is the I?
The I is just a way of speaking about it. It's consciousness, but it's just a way of speaking about it that makes it communicatable.
But is there something you're identifying with in all of this vastness? I mean, I know you have a local Dr. Neil that operates all day long.
Correct.
But when you go into this non-dual consciousness that seems like it's beyond space-time,
it is beyond space.
Where's your identity?
There's no identity. You're looking for an individual. You're looking for a person. You're looking for an ego. You're looking for something that identifies you as being the Godhead or the psychic being or a soul. But the truth about it is we're beyond all of that, or I am beyond all of that. So those are definitions of that limit and restrict one rather than describe one.
I think next time, let's explore this connection between the individual body mind we know as Dr. Neil and love as Dr. Neil, and this vast non-dual consciousness that you're describing as your daily experience.
Yeah, well, let's just explain this a little. I used to see the physical body as a separate entity from the soul, from the mind, from being, from bliss, from universal consciousness. But now I have discovered that the physical body is the same thing as consciousness and is everywhere and is beyond everything. So it's a new level of development for me fairly recent.
It's a new level of non-duality because it pulled something that was separate or dual into the non-duality.
Right. So if I'm asking myself, who am I? And who am I as a body, for example, I'm everywhere. I'm nowhere. So this body can see other galaxies. This body can see celestial levels where beings live. This body can see people on the moon who are actually living there. So this body is not just a local body, is everywhere because it's consciousness. And consciousness is not bound by time and space or space-time.
So I think what's important about this for our listeners is that we imagine enlightenment or awakening to higher stages happening in the mind. It doesn't happen in the mind. It happens in awareness or consciousness, and it includes more and more and more into the non-dual awareness as evolution continues. As they say in the Vedas, Brahma eats everything. Brahman eats everything. It's as if this vast non-duality continues to include more and more. So let's pick up there next time.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in today. If you found our discussion insightful, there's a good chance your friends will too. And we'd love it if you could take a moment to share this episode with a friend who you believe would appreciate it. Help us spread the word and reach more people. And follow us on any platform. Turn on your episode notifications so you never miss new content. Thanks for being part of our podcasting journey.